As the car idled quietly by the curb, the young woman lifted her hand in a polite gesture. Her long pink hair shimmered under the soft glow of the streetlights. "Goodbye, sir," she said firmly, trying to keep her voice steady. The man in the car, with his cold yet composed expression, glanced at her through the open window. There was something unreadable in his eyes, perhaps indifference, perhaps restraint. He replied simply, "All right." His tone was calm, almost detached, as he leaned back in his seat. The girl lowered her hand slowly, unsure of what to feel. The distance between them seemed greater than ever, even though only the car doors separated them. The silence that followed carried a finality that words could not fill. The car pulled away, its headlights cutting through the night. She stood there, watching the taillights fade into the distance. The cool breeze brushed against her skin as her hair danced lightly in the wind. Beneath the starlit sky, she remained motionless, feeling a quiet ache grow inside her chest. It was over. Whatever bound them together had finally come to an end. She took a deep breath, her eyes reflecting the pale blue light of the night. Although it wasn't a long time, she thought, those days felt like an endless torment. He had turned her life into one of silent submission, and even now, she wasn't sure when she could completely break free from his shadow. When will I finally escape him and return to the life I once had? The question lingered painfully in her heart. Memories began to flood her mind, faces, voices, and moments she wished to forget. A man's desperate plea echoed faintly, "Please help me." Another voice, sharp and cruel, snarled, "Who allows you to be here?" She could almost hear the laughter, the flattery, the suffocating air of manipulation. And in the center of it all, there she was, trapped, powerless, watching everything unravel before her eyes. The night air was cool against her skin as she walked slowly down the empty street. Her oversized white shirt fluttered slightly in the breeze, her long pink hair falling freely over her shoulders. In just a short time, she thought to herself, so many things have happened. It feels as if I've lived several lifetimes already. Her heart ached at the memories that flashed behind her eyes, faces, words, and the moments that had left invisible scars. Somewhere in that haze, the image of a man smoking silently lingered like a ghost she couldn't forget. Those memories began to intertwine, replaying like fragments of a dream she couldn't escape. She saw him again, the man with the sharp gaze and the aura of cold dominance. His eyes met hers, and in that moment, the space between them seemed to vanish. He leaned closer, his hand braced against the wall beside her, the faint smell of smoke and danger surrounding her. His expression was unreadable, part amusement, part threat. She could feel her heart pound painfully in her chest as she struggled to breathe under his piercing gaze. Her body trembled as she tried to push him away. "I don't want... I will sue you," she stammered between shallow breaths. But even as the words left her lips, she knew how powerless she was in front of him. The scene felt suffocating, his figure towering over her, her hands weakly pressed against his chest. The dim light cast long shadows on their faces, and for a fleeting moment, fear and defiance flickered in her eyes. Days later, life went on as if nothing had happened. She found herself standing before a small, brightly lit fruit shop at the corner of the street. The warm glow from the lamps contrasted sharply with the turmoil still lingering in her heart. "I will buy some fruits," she murmured quietly to herself, trying to sound casual, as though ordinary words could wash away the chaos of her past. The vendor looked up briefly, nodding as she walked inside, her slender figure disappearing between the colorful displays of apples and oranges. As she left the store, a heavy bag of fruit in her hands, exhaustion began to take over. Each step felt heavier than the last. She stopped in the middle of the crosswalk, leaning forward and gasping for air. The result of jumping into the water and being tormented by beaming Yi, she thought bitterly. It's left me so weak that I can't even carry this bag of fruit. Her breaths came in short, trembling bursts as she struggled to stand upright. The city lights blurred around her, and for a moment she felt utterly alone in the cold night. The night air was filled with the faint hum of traffic and the glow of streetlights. As she struggled to steady her breath, her grip on the bag loosened, and the fruits rolled slightly at her feet. Suddenly, a strong, unfamiliar hand reached down and picked up one of the heavy bags. The sound of "pick up" broke the stillness of the moment. The man's wristwatch gleamed faintly under the streetlight, and she froze, startled by the sudden presence beside her. She lifted her gaze slowly, her wide violet eyes meeting the figure standing before her. The man's tall frame cast a shadow over her, his calm, composed demeanor contrasting sharply with her breathless state. Her lips parted slightly in surprise, and a faint blush crept across her cheeks. For a moment, she forgot the weight of the fruit, the exhaustion, even the pain, her thoughts drowned by confusion and curiosity. Who is he? She wondered silently. As the dim streetlight illuminated their faces, the two stood facing each other in the middle of the quiet intersection. He was impeccably dressed in a dark suit, his expression unreadable, cold, distant, and yet strangely familiar. She could only stare back, her heart pounding in her chest, unsure whether it was fear or recognition that caused it. Around them, the world seemed to fade away, leaving only the soft glimmer of city lights and the unspoken tension in the air. The man remained still, holding the bag of fruit firmly in his hand. His sharp gaze lingered on her, as if studying her every movement. She, on the other hand, couldn't help but tremble slightly. The word fear echoed in her mind, an instinctive reaction she couldn't suppress. Something about his presence felt overwhelming, almost suffocating, like the air around him was charged with silent authority. She swallowed hard, unsure of whether to thank him or run away. Her hand instinctively flew to her mouth, her eyes widening in shock. A wave of realization washed over her, leaving her speechless. No, it can't be him, she thought, her pulse quickening. The city lights blurred around her as if the world itself had tilted off balance. She stood frozen on the spot, caught between disbelief and dread. The past she had tried so hard to escape had just found her again. Her heartbeat quickened as realization struck. She needed to move. The shock still lingered in her chest, but her instinct screamed louder. With trembling legs, she took a sharp step back, her body reacting before her mind could catch up. The night air brushed past her as if warning her of what was coming. Every sound around her seemed to fade, leaving only the echo of her hurried movements and the faint hum of the city. Suddenly, the roar of an engine shattered the silence. A massive truck came barreling down the road, its headlights blinding and merciless. The horn blared, beep, beep, loud and sharp enough to cut through the night. The ground vibrated beneath her feet, and her breath caught in her throat. The vehicle was coming too fast, too close, its metal body glinting under the streetlights like a predator lunging toward its prey. For a frozen second, everything slowed. Her eyes widened, her body stiffened, and all she could see was the reflection of the truck's lights gleaming against her pale face. The rumble of the engine grew deafening, drowning out even her thoughts. Her pink hair fluttered wildly in the air, caught in the rush of wind from the speeding truck. Fear consumed her whole, the kind that leaves no room for screams, only the pounding of one's heart. Then a screech tore through the chaos. "Brake!" The tires screamed against the asphalt, leaving long, dark trails as the driver desperately tried to stop. The sound was ear-splitting, echoing through the streets as sparks flew from beneath the wheels. The smell of burning rubber filled the air. Everything blurred. The motion, the noise, the panic, all collapsing into one terrifying instant between life and death. Her eyes shot open, pupils dilating in sheer disbelief. The world seemed to explode in a burst of light behind her as the adrenaline surged through her veins. She had just narrowly escaped disaster, a fraction of a second standing between her and tragedy. The cold night wind rushed past, and she stood frozen, her hair and clothes swaying gently, her face pale yet glowing under the streetlights. Her lips parted slightly as if to speak, but no words came out, only the silent realization that fate had spared her once again. The man's eyes widened in shock, the rush of adrenaline flooding through his veins as he realized the danger before him. His pupils contracted, a surge of raw instinct flashing across his face. In that instant, the composed, distant expression he often wore shattered, replaced by fear and urgency. He clenched his jaw, determination burning behind his gaze. Not again, not this time, he thought, his body already moving before reason could intervene. The next morning, under the clear blue sky, the world seemed far brighter, as though last night's chaos had been nothing but a bad dream. On the school campus, students gathered and whispered excitedly as a tall, strikingly handsome man walked through the gates. "Why does our school suddenly have such a handsome guy?" one girl exclaimed, eyes sparkling. "Aw, so handsome," another giggled, covering her mouth. Among them, she walked quietly, her pink hair swaying in the gentle breeze. She pretended not to notice the murmurs, but her heart stirred slightly when her eyes accidentally met his, calm, steady, and unreadable. Their footsteps echoed softly against the stone pathway, surrounded by tall trees and sunlight filtering through the leaves. She walked ahead, her heels clicking rhythmically, each step filled with both hesitation and grace. The air between them was thick with unspoken tension, an invisible thread pulling them together even as they tried to keep their distance. Though neither spoke, their shadows stretched side by side across the ground, as if destiny refused to let them drift apart. Suddenly, time seemed to fold back on itself. The sound of something falling shattered the stillness. Thud, roll, roll. A bag of fruit hit the pavement, oranges scattering across the ground. The simple motion triggered a flood of memories. That night, the dim streetlight, the trembling hands, the rush of fear. Her body stiffened, as if reliving the same moment all over again. She didn't even realize that her hand had begun to tremble. Before she could react, a strong arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. Her breath caught in her throat, and a startled gasp escaped her lips. She looked up, and there he was, the man from her memories, the one she thought she would never see again. His eyes, dark and intense, locked onto hers. For a moment, the world around them blurred. The sounds, the people, everything disappeared. All that remained was the faint warmth of his hand on her back and the wild rhythm of two hearts beating in sync once more. The screech of tires echoed in the air, and before she could comprehend what was happening, a firm grip pulled her backward with force. "Step back," a sharp voice commanded. She stumbled, her breath caught in her throat as the world spun. The man's tone cut through the chaos. Angry, trembling with restrained fury. "What type are you going? Where are your eyes? If you want to die, then don't involve other people." His words were harsh, like a slap, yet beneath the anger lingered something else. Fear. Fear of what could have happened, or perhaps fear of losing someone again. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest as she looked up at him, the man whose voice she could never forget. Her face hardened, the sting of his words still burning her ears. "Yesterday you harmed me not enough?" she demanded, her tone trembling between anger and disbelief. "What do you want now?" The night lights reflected in her wide, accusing eyes. Her voice broke slightly at the end, betraying the confusion and pain buried deep beneath her bravado. Her hands trembled as they gripped his sleeve tightly, desperate to hold her ground yet unable to push him away. The warmth of his arms seeped through the fabric, and for a moment she hated how familiar it felt. She wanted to let go, to step back, but her fingers refused to obey. Her emotions swirled within her, anger, fear, longing, all colliding in a chaos she could no longer name. He took a deep breath, his expression softening as he met her eyes. "Don't worry," he said quietly, his voice lower now, almost tender. "I just wanted to come here to make sure you're okay." Gone was the sharpness from before. In its place was a quiet sincerity. His gaze, once filled with dominance and frustration, now carried a trace of remorse. For a brief instant, the mask of pride slipped away, revealing the man beneath, one who cared far more than he wished to admit. She looked at him silently for a moment, her violet eyes reflecting the cool glow of the streetlights. Then she turned her face slightly away, forcing her tone to remain steady. "I am very fine. You don't need to care." But the lie trembled in her voice. The distance she tried to build between them hung heavy in the night air. He could hear it, the unspoken ache behind her words, and she could feel it too, like a shadow neither of them could escape. Night had settled softly over the city. The street lights glowed faintly, casting pools of golden light along the quiet path between tall buildings. The air was cool, carrying the faint rustle of leaves from the nearby park. Beneath the serene skyline, two figures walked side by side, a man in a dark suit and a woman in a white blouse. Their footsteps echoed in perfect rhythm, yet neither spoke. The man carried a small bag of fruit in one hand, his posture calm but protective. Though they appeared peaceful, an invisible tension hung between them, as if countless unsaid words drifted in the silence of the night. She finally turned her head toward him, her brows furrowed in confusion. "You want to leave Bei Ming Yi?" she asked, disbelief lacing her tone. "You better find him. I am not—" Her words trailed off, swallowed by the soft hum of the city lights. His expression remained unreadable, his face half hidden by the dim glow. Her heart twisted slightly. Why did even his silence feel like a wall she couldn't climb? Before she could finish, a familiar voice called out nearby. "Kaka, is this your boyfriend? He's pretty handsome." Her cheeks flushed instantly. The sudden interruption broke the quiet between them, the teasing tone slicing through the night air like a mischievous spark. She turned to see Aunt Lon, the elderly neighbor who always managed to appear at the most inconvenient times, smiling knowingly at her. The man beside her remained composed, though his slight smirk was not unnoticed. "Aunt Lon," she exclaimed, waving her hands quickly. "Don't get me wrong, he's just a fruit bearer." Her voice rose in flustered defense as she gestured toward the bag he was holding. The old woman chuckled softly behind her hand, clearly unconvinced. The girl's pink hair shimmered under the streetlights as she tried to laugh it off, but her heart raced. She could feel his quiet gaze on her, amused yet unreadable, which only made her more embarrassed. Aunt Lon continued to giggle, her eyes twinkling with playful mischief. "Kaka, I know," she said, waving dismissively. "I won't bother you two anymore." With that, the old woman turned and walked away, still smiling knowingly to herself. The girl could only sigh, covering her face in mortification, while the man beside her remained calm, though a faint hint of a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. The street grew quiet again, but now the silence between them felt different, lighter, warmer, and tinged with something she couldn't quite name. Under the dim glow of the streetlights, the woman stopped walking and turned sharply toward him, frustration flickering in her violet eyes. "What do you want, after all?" she demanded, her voice trembling with both anger and exhaustion. If you have a way to make him ignore me, then even without being asked, I'll pay you myself." Her words hung in the night air, sharp yet desperate, betraying how deeply she wanted to escape the chaos surrounding her. The man beside her, tall and composed, tilted his head slightly. His expression remained calm, but his eyes glimmered with amusement. "How much?" he asked in a low voice. "Are you going to pay me?" His tone was unreadable, half serious, half teasing, but there was something underneath it, a coldness that sent a shiver down her spine. She stared at him in disbelief, her steps faltering as the sound of his words echoed in her mind. You agree to help me?" she asked, unable to hide her surprise. "Why?" Her gaze searched his face for sincerity, confusion clouding her features. She couldn't understand why he would suddenly offer to help her when, moments ago, they could barely stand being near each other. The man's lips curved slightly, though not in kindness. His eyes darkened, the faint streetlight reflecting off them like ice. "I don't want him to be with you," he said slowly, his voice cold and deliberate. "I don't want him to like any woman." The weight of his words hit her like a gust of wind. She froze, unsure if she had heard correctly. There was no trace of humor in his tone, only a deep, possessive edge that sent a confusion coursing through her. Her heart began to race, not from fear, but from the realization that his reasons had nothing to do with her and everything to do with him. She blinked, her expression changing from shock to disbelief. He cares this much? Could it be that he and Bei Minye? Her imagination spiraled wildly, and an image flashed in her mind of the two men standing close, their eyes locked in an intense stare. The thought made her gasp softly, covering her mouth with her hand. The possibility was absurd, yet the emotion she'd seen in his eyes, jealousy, bitterness, and something else she couldn't name, made her doubt her own certainty. As cherry blossoms swirled in her imagination, she tried to shake off the ridiculous thought, but her mind refused to let go. The scene of the two men seemed so vivid, framed by soft petals and tension so thick, it was almost romantic. Her cheeks burned as she realized how outrageous her suspicion sounded, but she couldn't deny it. The way he had said, "I don't want him to like any woman," had carried an emotion far deeper than rivalry. And in that quiet moment beneath the city lights, she suddenly wondered if she had stepped into a story far more complicated than she had ever imagined. Inside the dimly lit elevator, the man in the black suit reached forward and pressed a button with quiet precision. His sharp gaze remained fixed ahead, cold and composed. The woman beside him, her pink hair cascading down her back, looked at him in confusion and unease. She didn't remember telling him which floor she lived on, so how did he know? The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the soft hum of the elevator ascending. Her eyes widened slightly as the elevator lights reflected off her face. "No matter what floor I live in, he already knows," she thought, her heart skipping a beat. Could it be that he investigated me? A chill ran down her spine. The idea that he might have gone to such lengths left her both unsettled and curious. When the elevator doors opened, he turned to face her. His tone was calm, but there was a certain weight behind his words. "Think carefully," he said, his eyes meeting hers with quiet intensity. "Then, tell me. I will help you." His promise lingered in the air like a riddle. Was it kindness or something else entirely? He stepped out of the elevator with slow, deliberate movements, one hand slipping casually into his pocket. She remained standing just inside, watching him with uncertainty. The distance between them grew as the doors began to slide shut, cutting off whatever thoughts or emotions she had left unspoken. Click. The elevator doors closed completely, leaving her staring at the metallic surface, her reflection faintly visible. The silence that followed was almost suffocating. Alone now, she let out a quiet sigh, her brows furrowing slightly. "This man is so strange," she murmured to herself, her mind spinning with doubt. "Don't tell me he really has feelings for Bei Minye?" That thought startled her, leaving her staring blankly into the distance, unsure whether to laugh or to be even more concerned about the mystery surrounding him.